database. So it's going to be a lot more optimized. And one other big advantage is if there's something wrong with that SQL statement, you can do SQL.rollback, and all those 1,000 inserts will be undone. So you're back where you started. So that's a very handy feature if you do a lot of inserts in your database. Database schema allows you to load the basic structure of your database. If you get a SQLite database, you can introspect it, see what tables there are, what fields there are. And the way you do that is by saying SQL connection.load schema. And you get back something called a SQL schema result. And that's something you can loop through. It's an array. So you can say the result of table 0, which means I want the first table in this database. And you can get back the name, you can get back the columns in that database, and just trace it out. I won't get into detail here because it's quite complex if you go through it. So I'll skip this demo for a good bit. In R1.5, they added database encryption. Before that, you couldn't encrypt databases. So that's a way to add a password to your database. Now, very important to realize is that you can't just put your password inside of your R application. It runs on the client side, so anyone could decompile it and see it. So, as a best practice, what you best do is definitely don't embed it in your application, but use something like the encryption key generator Adobe provides, and it does some tricky things like saving a little random value in your encrypted local store, and that's a secure location on your hard drive where nobody can access it or read it. So that's a good way to do it. There's a problem with this because it's linked to the user and the machine, so somebody in the community creates something that's not linked to users. This is a URL to that, you can check it out. It basically generates a random value and does some secure key generation for your database. Synchronization I'm going to skip because it's a quite complex topic. If you need a good SQLite database editor, Lita is one, and it's built in R, and it's using that introspection and the schema to just introspect, and you can create databases, read databases, do all sorts of things. It's very good. It's by the same guy that did that encryption key generator, and I'll put up the link later. This is a project I wrote with a Swiss guy a little while ago, and we're still working on it and adding synchronization, and it's a really cool feature because you saw it's 5 steps. It's not complex to do SQLite, but we thought it could be a little bit easier, so we made classes that allowed you to use MXML tags to just call databases. So what you can see here is you have a SQLite tag, and you just give it a file name, it creates that database. Then you have a query tag that you say the connection is my database.connection, and you have the SQL, and it executes that. And then just below here we have a data grid and a button, and on the button you see my query.execute, and it's going to call that. So these 4 lines are the same thing you would otherwise, let's say, write 40 or 50 lines. So it's an open source project. You can download it and play around with it. We're still working on it and improving it so you have synchronization and other things. I won't go into that. You can find it out yourself. The SQL wrapper demo, I'll just quickly show you how that works because it's quite cool. So rather than writing all that code, I'll just quickly show you how this works. What I do when I create a local database R application is just set up the queries and link them together with events. So if this opens, I can just show you before I would. So what I do here is, the first thing is I create a database. So this creates the database, contacts.db. And when the open event fires, I trigger the contacts table query.execute, which is this thing. So it's all hooked together with events. So this all happens at once when the events fire. So as soon as the database is created, it's going to create the table if it doesn't exist. As soon as that result comes back, it's going to list all the contacts which I've set up here. And then I have prepared some other queries I can just call, add query, edit query, and delete contacts. And I just call those, and it's 1 line of MXML rather than 10 lines of ActionScript. So it's quite a cool project, I think. So if you want to do it a little bit easier, you don't have all the control you have with ActionScript, but the SQLite wrapper class is the thing to watch out for. And with that, these are the resources you can check out. So the Lita, the SQLite editor, the SQLite wrapper, which is that open source project I'm working on. The Air Developer Center has really good articles on all sorts of APIs, so if you want to do something, chances are you'll find something there. There's also an Air Marketplace where you can publish your own Air applications and get some publicity for it, so people might be interested in downloading it. So with that, I'll make sure this application and these presentations become available to you. And with that, that's it. Thank you.
Did you all have a good time at